I think we're ready to get started. Thank you all for coming. My name is Simon Geib. I'm Director of Product Management at MuleSoft, and with me is my colleague Dakota Garcia, a Senior Product Manager at MuleSoft. We are both product managers for AnyPoint Code Builder. Before I get really started, just have a quick look at our forward-looking statement. So we are going to talk about features that are not generally available today. Please do not make any buying decisions based on anything that we're talking about, which is on our roadmap. All right, got that out of the way. Thank you so much for coming. I'm thrilled to see so many of you this late at TDX. So really, really appreciate you all being here. Let's dive in. Today's application landscape is more fragmented than it has ever been before. In fact, an average enterprise today uses more than 1,000 different applications to integrate their backends. And so they need integration software in order to make sure that everything is talking to each other, the data is transformed, and everything can be synchronizing. And this puts an additional strain on their IT systems, which are going to try to do more with less, which unfortunately slows down innovation. And now if you want to do a new project and you need IT help, you have to deal with competing priorities, backlog, technical debt, long wait times. But AI is here to help. In the last year, AI has touched so many parts of our life and has changed the way how we work. And the same is true for developers. Developers are no longer on their own. They don't have to spend their own time alone researching, writing code manually, debugging it, and testing it. AI helps with all of those tasks now, and it just makes everything faster. And so many tools now have AIs built in, which help developers be more efficient and write higher quality code. And there's data to support this. So if you look at these numbers here, AI is multiplying developer productivity along the way. You can see they now can refactor code 25% faster. They can generate documentation 35% faster and 45% faster to write actual code. And developers embrace the AI. And 55% of them predict a boost in productivity with AI by their side. And 60% of them feel more fulfilled using AI for their day-to-day job. And MuleSoft is also reimagining the way how developers integrate, how they build their APIs and their integrations by bringing in AI. And also, we are leaving behind yesterday's technology, and we are embracing a new way of helping our developers implement those APIs, implement those integrations by providing a new modern integration development environment. AnyPoint Code Builder is MuleSoft's next generation IDE for API and integration development. And what makes it different? So first of all, we've implemented AnyPoint Code Builder, or ACB, as an extension pack on Visual Studio Code. Now, the many developers out there that are already using VS Code for their Salesforce work, Java work, or anything else can just type in AnyPoint, get the extension pack, install it into Visual Studio Code, and they're ready to use this IDE. And if you don't want to use it on-prem, then you can go to the cloud. We have a cloud version of this powered by Salesforce Code Builder. Just go to your AnyPoint platform, launch the Cloud IDE, and you get the exact same features in your browser. And last but not least, we are also bringing in the power of AI into our IDE with Einstein for AnyPoint Code Builder. This feature is currently in a closed beta, but we are planning on GAing it this October. And what does it bring to you? So Einstein for AnyPoint Code Builder helps developers jumpstart their integration projects by using natural language prompts where they explain their use cases, and then in return, they receive the generated flow into their application. So let's talk a little bit more in detail how this actually works. So you create a new project, in AnyPoint Code Builder, and you get two options. You can either start from scratch, or you can start with Einstein. If you start with Einstein, it opens a configuration panel, and in there, you can put in your use case in natural language. We give you some examples in there to make it easier for you the first time. Like, for example, generate a flow which gets triggered every time there's a new case in Salesforce, and then send the sales information through an email. So you type in your prompt, you get your flow, Einstein generates it through our trust layer, and then it shows you the flow XML, but it also describes it in natural language. You can then review, is this what I wanted to do? You can put it directly into your project, or if you're not completely satisfied, you can think about your prompt and rephrase it, and then do it again, and then use the flow that was generated by Einstein. That flow includes core connectors, business logic, transformations, and also connectors either built in or from Exchange. Then you can do your own customizations to the code, to the flow. You can use your own business logic. You can test it, debug it, and deploy it just like you always do. But I'm sure you want to see how does this actually work instead of just listening to me go through slides. Dakota, why don't you show the demo?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simone. My name is Dakota Garcia. I'm a senior PM working on ACB, and today we have a few things lined up. We're going to start with AnyPoint Code Builder, MuleSoft's next-gen IDE that Simone was just highlighting. We're going to talk about how to jumpstart projects using MuleSoft's library of pre-built assets, how you can get up and running faster with your business's needs, and always we have Einstein to help us along the way. So let's jump into it. Here we have Brian. Brian is an integration developer, and his organization has tasked him with integrating their multi-channel retail business with their ERP system. In this case, that would be SAP. Now, Brian, as an integration developer, knows he wants to build some sort of a process layer here, make it modular, make it an efficient system for him to swap systems in and out of and interact with the variety of systems that he's working with. So with that, let's jump into the AnyPoint platform. The AnyPoint platform is MuleSoft's hub where you can see all the various products that are offered. And we're going to be using AnyPoint Code Builder today. And you can see that featured here front and center. So I can click on the Get Started button here, and you can see the various forms that AnyPoint Code Builder is offered in. Along the, I think that would be the left-hand side for you folks, the launch button will actually launch AnyPoint Code Builder in the browser. And additionally, this is available on the desktop as well via an extension pack, so you can click the install link and install it directly into your VS Code instance. For today's demo, we're actually going to start in the Cloud IDE. So I can click on this, and in just a few seconds, my IDE is up and running, ready to use, and I'm ready to begin my integration project. So let's follow Brian's journey. We know we're dealing with a retail use case here, and we know we need to integrate that with SAP. So let's go to the Develop and Integration tab here along the quick actions on the left-hand side of the page. So we have Design an API, Implement an API, Develop an Integration. Those are our three core user journeys here. We're going to do the Develop and Integration. I can give this a name. I can call this TDX Demo. And I can choose to start from a template or an example project. I don't have to start from scratch. Brian knows that MuleSoft prides itself on reusable assets, and so he wants to see, is there a template that already exists that could help solve his retail use case? So from here, he can just type in retail, orders, simple, right? A couple keywords there, and he can see a list of assets that he can leverage for his particular project. Here we can see we have a retail and consumer goods ERP order process API implementation template. That sounds like something that might fit his use case. But if he wants to learn more, he can simply click on the hyperlink right here, and it's going to redirect him to Exchange where he can view more information about this asset. So Exchange, for those who might not be familiar, is MuleSoft's repository of reusable assets. These could be assets designed by us here at MuleSoft or they can be assets designed by your organization that are meant to be shared across your projects. This is a template that we've built out here at MuleSoft, and we can see that this template implements the ERP order process API specification. If I click on that, I can see that this API we'd be implementing creates or updates orders in SAP, and I can search for orders based on these criteria. So this sounds like something Brian would need to leverage. And it's also part of MuleSoft's Accelerator for Retail, which is a collection of larger templates to solve the retail use case for his business. So now that he knows he wants to add this asset and he wants to leverage this, he can simply click Add Asset and create the project. Now, this project takes a little bit to spin up, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the desktop version of the IDE, which I have open in this window here. And this is AnyPoint Code Builder, and I know what you're thinking. You see this and you say, wow, this is a lot to take in all at once. I have my file structure here on the left side. I have all of my flow components. I have the XML that's driving that canvas. But what's great, and what's one of my favorite things, is this is all code that you don't have to write as a developer. This is all code that we've built automatically for you here at MuleSoft. And don't just take our word for it. We've collaborated with customers in this space to create these templates to ensure we're solving all of the use cases that need to be solved. And here we can see the MuleSoft extension pack is installed. It's meant to work alongside any other extensions that you have in your VS Code instance. So here I also have Thunder Client. I use that as my REST client when I'm doing my integration development within VS Code. And so it's meant to work alongside. You don't have to have a dedicated program. You can work in the browser, or we keep it lightweight and you can work in your desktop environment. Now here, I can take a look at this template that we just opened up, and we see that there's several flows here. I can handle errors, I can process updates, all of these things. I'm gonna look at the process updates because Brian's journey is, hey, as an order flows into Shopify or my e-commerce system, I need to create those sales orders in SAP and sync that data back. So this is the flow that we're gonna be focusing on today. And you can see that it's very modularized. We've kept it in a template. We've segmented out into different XML files. And so we're calling our flow refs here, which call those system APIs. So if we wanted to take a look at what's actually happening with SAP, I can open this up. And you can see all of the calls that we're making to SAP here. We have the lookup order, and then we have the process or update flow. And let's look at this. This is what I'm talking about earlier, or this is what I was talking about earlier. All of these pre-built things. Here we have error handling ready to go out of the box. All those annoying edge use cases that we have to think about as developers. How is something going to fail? When is it going to fail? How do I retry? We've already built all of those in using industry best practices into these flows right out of the box so you don't have to think about them. And then if we look further at what this flow is doing, we're looking for that existing sales order. We are, if needed, creating or updating that sales order in NetSuite. So depending on this check right here, we have this choice component where we're saying, okay, great, if I want to update it, I need to call this API here. Otherwise, I need to create a brand new sales order. So you can see all the requests that are happening as part of this flow. And if we zoom out, you can see all of the different components here. And of course, with AnyPoint Code Builder as the IDE, you can then go in and tweak any of these settings. What if I don't like this SAP variable? I can click here, I can change the expressions that are in here, I can rename it, I can delete it, I can see where it's highlighted in the IDE, what code is actually driving this particular component. Let's say I want to view a different one. I can simply scroll down, I can find another component that I want to look at, right click, hey, show me this in the UI, and we'll automatically snap to that component. Now this is a choice, so there's really nothing to configure there, but you get the point. So from here, you might say, okay, Brian's kind of solved his use case if we jump back to the slides here. We have this template, gives us this process API, helps get our order data into SAP, helps us process updates for existing sales order. What if something changes? Inevitably, systems change over time with organizations. Your leadership or executives at the company might suddenly say, hey, we're moving away from SAP, we're going to NetSuite, and we need to now account for that as part of our automation process. Well, what if I don't have a template to assist me sort of with that migration, right? This is where Einstein starts to come in. It helps get developers up and running faster. Now, I hope this works. meaning that Einstein and LLMs as a whole, they always generate a little bit of variability between the content. But let's actually send a request to Einstein. So I'm going to shrink down my window here, and we can see our canvas on the left. We have all of our XML code here, but Einstein lives in this panel right here. And this is your prompting experience for you to list out your use case and have Einstein help you with that. So we can just say something simple here, like generate a subflow that creates or updates a sales order in NetSuite. In real time, Einstein is composing. Behind the scenes, we're using that Salesforce trust layer. So trust is our #1 value here at Salesforce. We want to make sure that you feel confident with the feature, where your data is going, how it's being used, all of that stuff. And we can see here that Einstein has generated all of this XML code for us to then use in our flow. So if I don't have a template and I don't want to start from scratch, Einstein sort of solves that gap and helps get you up and running faster. And we're running a validity check behind the scenes. We're saying, okay, Einstein gave us this code back. Is there anything toxic in there? Is there any PII that needs to get stripped out? Are these flows valid? Are they using Mule4? Do these operations that are used as part of these connectors, do they exist as part of that connector? So we're checking all of that before surfacing it to you so that you know as soon as you get this data back, you can feel confident in using it in your workflows. Similarly, we give you a description of what this does. That way, you sort of have a high-level overview before you insert it into your project of what all the components are doing. So let's insert this code. I'm curious to see what this puts in here. I will insert it, but if this isn't great, I have a backup. Perfect. Okay, yeah, so we have a choice here, and we have a few different expressions configured. This is pretty good. So this gets us up and running. We can make customizations from here. I'm actually going to insert this other one that I was testing out with earlier today. And so what's cool about Einstein, you can see your prompt history. So like Simone was mentioning earlier, if I need to make tweaks or adjustments to my prompt, I can do so. So here, I had this one, which I really liked, and it came up with a bunch of code for me. Look at this. So the prompt I had sent was something similar, generate a sales flow, or a subflow that creates or updates a sales order in NetSuite. But I have all of this code that came back from the LLM, which really helped me get up and running. And this was like one of my favorite responses that Einstein sent back. And like I said, there's always a little bit of variability when you're sending prompts. But here, I have that set order ID. I have my choice. We're checking for that existing order, or we're checking for if we need to create a new order. We've automatically pulled in the NetSuite connectors. We're automatically doing those transformations. And so this, to me, is amazing and something that would help integration developers like Brian get up and running with their problems even faster and help to solve them within MuleSoft, within the IDE, even when templates or accelerators don't exist. So from here, I can continue editing my flow. If I wanted to add in, let's say, a logger, I can do that here. I just click the plus button. This is all UI driven. I can come to my core processors, go to my components, go to my logger, and ultimately can make any sort of modifications to my flow. So from here, all Brian would have to do as an integration developer, plug in his credentials. Ultimately, he can debug it within his IDE using a runtime, send API requests, make sure things are functioning as expected, and then if he would like to deploy to Cloud Hub, which is where this application would run in the cloud, he can do so as well. So that was a super high-level overview. I'm going to jump back to the slides here and just sort of recap. We took a look at sort of the AnyPoint platform, how we can boot up AnyPoint Code Builder, the different forms that it exists in, and then we saw templates, accelerators, how you can jumpstart your projects faster based on your use case, and then we used Einstein to help us add a new system into our flows. So as an overview of AnyPoint Code Builder, if you want to see more, if you want to see it in action, I highly recommend you check out the AnyPoint Code Builder booth with the time that's remaining here at TDX. But ultimately, I will pass it over to Simone to talk about our roadmap and what's coming up. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Dakota. So Dakota showed you that you cannot just use Einstein when you have nothing in your project, kind of like the empty canvas syndrome, but also if you already have implemented some flows, but you want to add a subflow or you want to add more functionality, then you can go back and ask Einstein for that as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about roadmap. So I mentioned at the beginning, we are in open beta right now for this feature, which is called Generative Flows. And we are planning to GA this feature in October of this year. At the same time, we are starting to work on what we call generative data transformations. And the way that is going to work is if you know like what your sample input format and your sample output format is for a transformation, then the data weave transformation is auto-generated for you. And the reason why we put this as the second feature on our roadmap is because we heard from our customers that transformations are always hard. Doesn't matter which tool you use, right? There are so many variations, and expressions and transformations are really all over all integration projects. So that's why we're going to do that next. And then we will start working on what we call AI-powered error handling. So when you have your flow, you have your project, and now you start debugging it, and all of a sudden you get an error and you don't know what to do. So that's where this feature is going to come in. It's going to help you like find knowledge articles and interpret error messages, and it will just help you deal with the errors you get to fix them, to get you faster to the point where you can actually deploy this application. And now real quick, and this is more for people who already have an idea of AnyPoint Code Builder, and this may preempt some of the questions that we would otherwise get at the end. We are currently in our February release. So we release 3 times a year, just like all the Salesforce releases. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend go get it into your VS Code, open up the browser, and see what came in February. But the next release is June, and we are super excited about that one. The June release is going to bring us the Data Weave Expression Builder. So this will be a UI to build your Data Weave expression quickly in ACB. It's going to bring custom Java support. And you may say, oh, I've already seen this. This is already supported. And you are correct. We can already run custom Java in ACB. But we are enhancing this, we are improving this to get you faster to the point where you can build your Java classes and then run them as part of your flow. Today, we are supporting Mule Runtime 4.4 with ACB and Java 11, Java 8.11. And with the June release, we bring in the ability to download additional runtimes. So you can choose which is the runtime that I want to use in here. I'm on Edge, I'm on LTS, I want to download the runtime that suits me, and we're also supporting Java 17, so in addition you can say, oh, I want to download JDK 17, and I want to use that for my projects. We are also working on direct deploy to Cloud Hub 2.0. We have Cloud Hub 1.0 right now. That doesn't mean that today you cannot deploy to Cloud Hub 2.0. You can just export a deployable jar, go into Runtime Manager. I already talked about like generative flows, but we are also working on support for additional API types. And at the end of this presentation, in fact, we're going to share a QR code. If you are interested in async APIs in event-driven architecture, we have a real quick survey for you. So we would appreciate if you give us some feedback. And in the interest of time, I'm going to go a little bit faster through the rest of the roadmap. Everybody's asking about MUnit support. We are going to add the first phase of MUnit in June, where you can run your MUnit tests that you created previously in Studio in ACB. And then in October, we are going to add the ability to create MUnit tests. We will add the Data Weave Transform UI. We are also adding end-to-end API governance rules and the generative data weave that we talked about, as well as GAing generative flows. So that's going to be it for this calendar year. And then in 2025 and beyond, we're going to GA the Cloud IDE. We're going to add more UI faces, localization for ACB, and additional AI features. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us.